All right, we are going to bring this meeting to order. So I will do roll call, so please unmute so you can answer in. So I'm just going to do you how I see you on your screen. Terry Ham.
Here.
David Cunha.
Here.
Brian O'Hare.
Here.
Chris O'Neill.
Here.
Mary Waite.
Here.
Currently absent are Sean McDonald and Steve Mello. I'm going to take the agenda out of order, so I'd like us to review the December meeting minutes. You could pull those up. And
Looks good.
and just take note of the dates at the end of the that agenda. We had gone over some dates, so if you move that to your personal calendar,
Yeah, I need to do that.
hopefully we'll get to see everybody. I will miss some of their PTO meetings because they happen to be on charter meeting dates, so
Oh,
I said charter comes first. All right, so now that we've looked at it, I'm going to somebody make a motion to accept them.
don't move.
Motion, we accept it.
Thank you, Terry, and David second the, which is great. And so to accept the meeting minutes, Heidi says yes. Terry says
Yes.
yes. David says,
Yes.
Brian says,
Abstain, I wasn't there.
that's right, he will abstain. Chris
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, let's pull up the Article 6. I'm sorry, I told everyone to pull them up and now my thing is just spinning, spinning. So Melanie will take the notes to share with Anthony so that the items that we talk about, questions or changes, she'll share with him at a later date after he, if he joins us later tonight. So we went through everything up to Article 6-9. So 6-9. It's on the bottom of the third page. So this was about removals and suspensions.
Heidi, excuse me,
Yep.
what was the number again? The
Sorry,
number-
we're on page 3 of the Article 6 document,
Yep.
section 6.9, removals and suspensions.
All right, thank you.
And this section is just talking about appointed, people appointed to boards. It's not a, but it does say or employee of the town.
Right, and it talks about the contract, which is a little confusing.
Yep.
Excuse me.
So it is, makes reference to appointed an employee of the town.
Mhm.
An employee that is not subject to the provisions of the Commonwealth Civil Service Law or covered by the terms of a collective bargaining agreement that provides a different method. So do you have an example, Anthony, of who would be an employee of the town, not subject to the provisions of the Commonwealth Civil Service Law or covered by the terms of a collective bargaining agreement?
I assume you mean me, but Anthony's not here, but
Oh, sorry, Anthony, sorry, yes.
we're both
Sean.
Italian. That's okay.
Yeah.
That would be, we have a non-union employees, but generally I like myself and,
Oh, okay.
finance director. So we have probably 6 or 7 non-union employees, but they have personal contracts with the town, and there's similar language to this in there. We do have some other non-union employees that aren't contractual that would fall under this, like at the COA, some of the employees there, I think a few are non-union. So those would be kind of covered under this.
Okay. So that is a relatively small group of employees.
Yes. Which gets larger if you include those that have personal contracts, but so it's kind of redundant to have them both. So, I would recommend keeping it in the
Yeah.
chart.
Do you think that it makes sense to split this up into multiple member bodies and then employees in another paragraph, since it's really talking about 2 different groups of people?
That's what I was wondering. And I want to make sure we are covered. But if employees that have contracts, this is already the language of their contract. Other employees that don't have a contract, that we need to keep that in.
There
So
are
we're covered.
there are employees that don't have a contract that are non-union. Yes.
Okay, so we need to keep it in, but we could separate it as Terry says.
What area of that paragraph were you just talking about?
The very first sentence, it said, regardless of the length of the appointment, any appointed town officer, member of a multiple member body, or employee of the town that is not subject to the provisions of the Commonwealth Civil Service Law or covered by the terms of a collective bargaining agreement that provides a different method may, for good cause, be suspended or removed from office without compensation by the relevant appointing authority. So I think even if we broke it into 2, because I think the other piece, the term good cause shall include but not be limited to, I think that's important for if we were to, take the appointed folks and the employees separate. This piece on good cause probably needs to make sure that it's for both.
John, my only note was on the any conflicts when it comes to the individual contracts. The term good cause, is that term spelled out the same way within the contracts?
Good question.
Generally, yes. We can go, well, we can go back and confirm, but generally, yes.
I think, though, that the language that's in here makes it clear that if there's an employee that's subject to another contract, none of this applies to them, because then the contract
Supersedes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think good cause is a legal term, but Anthony can tell us for sure. So my suggestion would be to split that up and talk about employees that are not already in a union or under another contract, and then below that, multiple member bodies. Because compensation isn't an issue for multiple member bodies, right? Unless, are you getting paid for this, Heidi? You might be.
No,
getting it.
no.
Just joking.
If I was, they owe me.
I heard it was 1.5 million.
Yeah,
Ah,
but you
Tina.
may want to leave that in there though, because there's generally talk regularly about stipends for appointed and elected officials. So if you,
Would cover.
okay.
don't you all think you deserve to be compensated for this
I
time
do
and
believe
effort?
that 1.5 million was batted around.
There you go.
So I think even
Can
if
we
we
make a
just
motion?
move them into 2 sentences, it's just a mouthful. So can it be regardless of any length of the appointment, any appointed town officer? Then it would be or member of a multi-member body. Then we would skip all the rest. And then it would go may for good cause be suspended or removed from office without compensation by the appointing authority. I think that has to stay in.
Mhm.
Separate line that says, regardless of the length of appointment, an employee of the town that is not subject to provisions of the Commonwealth Civil Service Law or covered by the terms of a collective bargaining agreement that provides a different method may for good cause be suspended. Then I think it,
Makes sense to me.
and then we can put the term good cause, third sentence in the same paragraph, shall include but not be limited to the following: incapacity or other temporary illness, inefficiency, insubordination, and conduct unbecoming the office. The appointing authority shall suspend any appointed town officer, member of a multi-member body, or employee of the town if such action is deemed and said to be necessary and said by the appointing authority. I think we need the word said by.
No, only if
It's
such
said.
action is deemed by said appointing authority.
I'm
To be
reading it
necess-
incorrectly. Thank you.
Yeah.
To be necessary to protect the interests of the town.
So will we start this like a third paragraph with the term good cause? Because it sounds like that last content is going to be reflecting or being responsive to both or referring back to both of those initial 2 paragraphs, the multiple member body as well as the employee. So it seems like everything from the term good cause shall include and the reference to if action is deemed by said appointing authority should refer both to those 2 previous examples.
And I'm thinking that as them, Mary, actually as sentences, because they're just, the
Okay.
first one would really just be a sentence.
Okay,
the
so not
second one-
separate. So this just one sentence, second sentence, and then
Second
that
sentence
expands
about
on
the
content of both.
employee, third sentence, good cause.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then I guess fourth sentence would be, however, no suspension
Mhm.
shall be for more than 15 days.
How about the no appeal may be made by any suspension that is made pursuant to this? Why would they not get an appeal? Is that
Yeah,
because
I don't
coming into something else?
explain that.
That's like, that would kind of, that's what stuck out to me right away, was that we're not allowing them to at least have an appeal on this suspension. I see they can have them, they can go further on, later on in the paragraphs, but I don't understand what, because then we're not going to pay them, right? We're not going to pay that, whoever that person is, we're not going to pay them. And they don't have they don't have a way to appeal that suspension.
Mm.
Goes to due process, right?
Right.
Might be something for Anthony that he may have a history there that.
Because he definitely added that.
Yeah.
Well,
it
it's
looks like it
interesting
was.
as a
Yeah, that's what it
lawyer.
looks like. Looks like he
Yeah.
had it. And
Mm.
And
Sure, can we come back to that, and
I think
ask
we need to,
Anthony?
because
yeah.
we also want to know, I understand an employee, which the suspension shall be, no suspension shall be more than 15 days, but for someone who's appointed to a board, the 15 days may not make sense.
Well, Heidi, I was wondering too, because it says suspension may be counter, excuse my, like, stumbling over this
I
word,
can't even,
with
yeah,
removal. So perhaps like this thought is that that's almost, the time frame in which actors are coming together to determine if there's going to be removal, but you can't have it an indeterminate time frame of suspension. Does that?
okay,
So, I mean,
okay.
I'm just thinking, because that struck me
Yeah.
too, is like, that sounds, I mean, again, school committee, we only meet often every 2 weeks, so that wouldn't
Right.
necessarily have, and planning, again, some of the other boards meet even less frequently, so, but I would
Okay.
imagine that that's, so that there's some sort of progress made, I guess, in replacement.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or a cooling of heads.
Right.
See that?
Right. I mean, again, we can talk, revisit that time, that time frame, if that's long enough. I don't know what, let's say they were going to move to that next step. Would that give everyone enough time to put together the paperwork or, history or
Mhm.
whatever they need? I mean, that's a question again, then we come back to Sean or Anthony.
All right, so Melanie, you have a note for Anthony? We want to just know more about that fifth,
Right.
So let's go on then to A. It says a written notice of removal and a statement of the cause or causes, therefore shall be delivered in hand or by certified mail, return receipt requested, to the last known address of the person whose removal is sought. So Sean, is that how things are currently done?
Yes, that's how we do it
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Unless
it
it's
also-
super, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just saying, like, again, as we're thinking kind of modernizing this, does it have to be so delivered in hand or by certified mail? Is there an option? I mean, due to the nature, do we not want to do this electronically? I'm assuming like it's
Oh, well, a lot of times the certified mail return receipt guarantees that they get it.
okay.
So-
That's good. Okay.
And then we don't have it in here, but when it's a very serious offense, we have them served by the
Right,
sheriff's
okay.
office or constable.
It's good to know. Okay.
Should
Thank
we
you.
add that if warranted, this written notice and statement of cause may be delivered by constable?
I don't think so for this,
Okay.
for just removal from a board or committee or termination of employment.
But it
Yeah.
also has that employee, and I mean, we're also in the same breath talking about employees.
Right. Yeah, I think it's fine the way it is. It
Okay.
might just get complicated. Yeah.
So we'll look to B, such removal shall be final unless within 5 days following the delivery of such notice to the town officer, member of a multiple member body or employee of the town may request a public hearing before the appointing authority or a hearing officer that is designated by the same, at which such person may be represented by counsel, shall be entitled to present evidence, call witnesses, and question any witnesses appearing at the hearing. Any such designated hearing officer shall make findings of fact and rulings on admissibility of evidence, but the ultimate decision of removal shall remain with the appointing authority.
So is this all happening within those 15 days, presumably then?
Well, the notice has to be given within 5 days.
No, I know, but that suspension. So when they receive that suspension, are then all of these things happening within that suspension time frame? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
It seems like it because the
Right.
written notice happens, and then they have 5 days following that notice.
Right.
No,
Not sure
well,
it's
I
not-
can
shall
tell
be
you, no,
Final.
generally, once they're suspended, I know it says 15 days, so we can talk to Anthony about that, but the process takes a lot longer than 15 days.
I would think so, because even this, within, such removal shall be final unless within 5 days following the delivery of such notice, blah, 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 blah. It sounds like within 5 days, this hearing has to happen. I
Right.
think within 5 days, they notify that they are requesting a hearing is probably
Right.
more,
Because it says then 10 days after
Legit.
the public hearing is adjourned in the next paragraph. So it sounds like that's all contained in the 15 days. That's what I'm wondering. Like I just,
that
if that,
doesn't sound, that sounds too fast in real life.
especially right now with COVID. Yeah, that's what I'm curious, that's something that's like struck me as the timing. It does seem rather quickly.
Yeah, the 15 days, because when you got within 5 days and within 10 days, it sounds like the whole thing is in 15 days, but I don't
Right.
see how that can be possible. And then where it says the town, okay, person may request a public hearing before the appointing authority or hearing officer. But then in the end, the ultimate decision remains with the appointing authority.
So I guess I can give you kind of a real life how it happens. So
Okay,
when there's a significant issue with an employee where you would warrant a suspension, they are suspended. And depending on if it's a legal issue, it's with pay. If they're indicted, it's generally without pay.
mhm,
And then what happens is that there's a process. We have a hearing. They're notified of the hearing. They can represent themselves. They can have an attorney at the hearing. Depending on what the issue is, usually if it's significant, the appointing authority doesn't always have the all of the knowledge or expertise to really oversee a hearing. They'll hire a hearing officer. The hearing officer will hold the hearing and then present a decision to the appointing authority, and then the appointing authority decides what the consequence will be of the penalty. So that's why that's written like that.
okay,
So if it's a minor offense, they can go before the board and hash it out. If it's more serious and has legal consequences, you'd hire a hearing officer.
and the appointing body ends up being more like the jury.
No,
No,
the decision's handed out by the hearing officer. Just kind of, well, we find good cause that this person did this, and they're not lying. They have no defense. This is what we find. It's accurate. Then they're like, well, what does the appointing authority want to do? Then the
okay,
appointing authority can say, okay, well, if you say they did that, then we're going to
They
fire
fire.
them. We're going to suspend them for 3 months, whatever. So
So the suspension can be longer than 15. So that's an initial suspension, the 15 days. I guess I'm stuck on that. But then the decision can be made to suspend them longer. So it's not as though, so suspension can be used as I want to say like punishment, but it doesn't, there's an option to suspend after you've gone through this process as an alternative to firing, so to speak.
correct.
Okay.
well, sounds like we have a few questions for Anthony. I'm going to say, let's move on to section 6-10 at the bottom,
Thank you.
notice of vacancy.
Oh, Steve Mello is joining us.
Awesome. Oh, did you see that? He's Reagan's dad.
Yeah. Well, at first I was like, were you being, bombed again? But I
Yeah.
gotta think about it.
Probably because I renamed his daughter at the last meeting.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay, Reagan's dad.
I thought that would help.
Yes, thank you. It did. You have a very impressive and extensive library behind you.
All comic books, I assure you.
We have just moved on to 6-10,
Okay.
Steve, which is on the 4th page of Article 6.
And I have 7 up. Okay.
So when it says such vacancy to be posted on the town bulletin board for not less than 10 days. Where is this town bulletin board located?
Well, this is old, so we do have a
Right.
bulletin board in town, but it's generally the town website.
Okay,
I think that was the bulletin board at the top of the entry stairs. Cork, old school. Yeah,
so Melanie will make a note to add the town website.
I hate to ask, but will that be current long enough? Or is there anything we can do more general than that? I know we're gonna get a signboard.
Yeah, generally it's the official posting area and years past, back before the internet and websites, it used to be the
Mhm.
bulletin board. So if any notice for the clerk's office or anything had to be posted on the bulletin board, including minutes and I mean agendas. Years ago, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, the state allowed towns to certify their websites as the official bulletin board and notification.
okay.
So,
So could it say designated public posting area?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, something generic like that that would change with the times.
Right.
yeah, you could do that.
And this is another example of mixing up, it doesn't say multiple member bodies, but it talks about a fixed term. So do we need to separate out again? And right now, I don't think our postings and our boards and committees, our vacancies posted on the website. We're looking for an assessor. We're looking for an board of assessors person. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a section on the website that has vacancies. If you go to join a board or committee, it's right on our homepage on the left. And if you go there, the first page that takes you to is vacancies.
Okay.
And we try to keep that up to date.
Oh, yeah.
To Terry's point, I'm wondering, and it says whenever a vacancy occurs in any town office, position, or employment, or whether by reason of a pending retirement or expiration of a fixed term vacancy, I think we also need to add, or can we just say open seat on a multiple member body? So for example, when someone steps down, as in our case with Brock, we want to make sure that that's there, that is included.
Hmm. Don't think that hers. Well, I think it's, I don't know, maybe it's the way I'm reading it. It says whenever a vacancy occurs, and I think vacancy can mean for any reason. And then it says, or whenever by reason of a pending retirement or expiration of a fixed term, the vacancy can be anticipated. So it's saying if any vacancy happens just out of the blue, or if it's anticipated, then the appointing authority shall cause public notice of such vacancy to be posted. But that might just be the way I'm reading it.
Hmm.
No, I think
Terry,
that-
what are your thoughts? Because you were the first person to mention the multiple member body, which got me rereading that sentence.
Yeah, I think that the phrase town office is what refers to the boards, right? Boards or committees.
Yes.
I mean, we could add multiple member body because that's what's been used elsewhere in the
Yeah, it's a
document.
good idea.
But you're right, Sean, that does make sense.
Any other part of this paragraph?
The only thing I noticed was at the very end, at least on my piece of paper, it doesn't, the sentence doesn't finish. So I did go back to the original charter and it just, after the word occurs, it just has to say must be filled. So if we just write that in until somebody types this together.
Good catch.
Thank you, because it does look like that is missing. There's no punctuation after occurs on our document, so perhaps the last page didn't get scanned or got cut off or something. If we are then all set with 6:10, I'm going to have us move to section 7.
Great.
So Article 7 is about transitional provisions. So 7.1, which was continuation of existing laws, looks like it has been thought to be completely eliminated.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Anthony did that. I think he'll have to give us his rationale.
Okay. So going on to 7 dash, which was now proposed as 1, would be continuation of government.
I thought that looked pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm. It also sounds like we are indentured servants to this, our current committee. 7.3, the continuation of administrative personnel.
In CCOMC, this might mean you have to go beyond 6 months.
No,
Only
I
kidding.
only signed till June 30th.
Yeah, I think that was meant to be a continuation of government. While names got changed in the original charter, titles may have been changed, but
I agree, Steve. As I read it, I'm thinking initially that must have been a concern as we were, the group was originally writing the initial charter, that
Right.
things would change. It seems that
And you've
Not
got to
a
remember,
problem.
when the original charter was written, a lot of the town office or positions were paid positions. Stipend or otherwise, but I mean, the
Stipended committee positions. Mhm.
select board got paid, I think.
That may be the reason for eliminating the first paragraph, if this was in the original charter just while it was new.
Right.
The interesting part about this is the last, well, I don't know if it's the last sentence, the end. It's basically saying, well, anyone that's affected by this charter will stay on and continue to get paid regardless.
Right.
It's like,
That's the way I
well,
was reading it.
what
Anyone
the-
impacted is really not impacted.
Yeah, you're not impacted until you decide to go. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Remember, we were trying to get everybody to agree that the charter was the way to go. So if anybody felt that they might be out of a job or out of an elected position, they wouldn't have to worry. I don't know. Honestly, it's been too long, but Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm kind of wondering if we need it.
I'm gonna highlight this. And
You're wondering if we need the whole article?
yes,
Well, yeah, that's section 3, because we haven't changed anything like that in the chart, unless when we go back, we want to change boards or what am I looking at? The composition of boards.
Well, that's when I read 7.3. I don't know the history of the boards and committees in town, but I could imagine that because of laws or regulations changing, that one, like, say, Conservation Commission might have to absorb something else. I can't think of an example. Has it happened with waterways and harbor management? Steve, has that changed? It's
The transfer of records and property.
let's just say, well, Shellfish, we didn't officially merge the two. They're separate funding, general fund and a enterprise fund. But the records of the Shellfish Department were moved into the Waterways office. So that's where 3 would come into being. If we ever merged, well, just throwing it out there, if we ever merged conservation and the building department, not that that's logical, but the records would merge. They would probably go from one department to the consolidated department. And the only example that I can give would be that the Shellfish records are now in the harbor master office. I can see the need for section 7.3, the new 7.3, but section 7.2 talks about as a result of the adoption of this charter.
Right.
And that was done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't see where it's really pertinent.
oh, Anthony's gonna join us here. Tell them we have
We'll-
lots of questions.
How do we say that? We'll let him get his coat off before we start badgering him with questions. Hello, Mr. Stavastano.
Hello.
Have your ears been ringing?
Oh, what did I do wrong?
You did not do anything wrong. We just have questions.
I was at the ZBA. My ears always ring when I'm at the ZBA. Can somebody, Sean, can you just send me I apologize because I thought I'd be stuck at the ZBA, so I did not bring that file. Can you just email me? Are you on
Oh,
7
yeah.
or 6?
We've
I'll send you
moved into
both.
7, but we
All
did
right.
have questions at 6, but we'll start with our questions on 7 because that's where we are now.
Sure. You feeling better, Melanie?
I am, thank you. How are you feeling?
Good.
That's good.
Still one-handed, but
Oh, no. Was that a vacation injury, Anthony?
no, it was planned. Elbow surgery.
Oh,
It's been a problem for a while.
oh.
And she
Tennis
started
elbow?
competitive arm wrestling. All right, so I just sent those to you.
Thank you. All right, which one first?
Well, the very first one, 7.1, continuation of existing laws. We weren't sure the rationale to remove it.
It goes without saying. I mean, you don't have to say that the
I guess we didn't know why it was initially put in.
yeah, I don't know why either. It's not necessary.
Okay,
I mean, you don't need to say the laws are the laws and it's still in effect. Really, so it might have been a standard provision that the people who were drafting these back then used, but
okay.
I don't think it's necessary.
We did understand the continuation of government.
Yep.
But as far as continuation of administrative personnel, because we believe that it sounds like this was in the initial so that
Yep.
people wouldn't worry about their positions. But now
Right.
this isn't, things aren't changing with this adopted charter. It's,
Yeah, I would just, all I did was change the grammar.
so we were wondering if we could eliminate
I
the
think
whole
you could.
section.
I think you could. Yes, I think you can. A lot of these were, initial, people were nervous that charter was coming in
Yeah.
or whatever, so.
Because they all get to stay on no matter if their job was eliminated or not.
We said 7-4 does make sense because even now we are still, consolidating groups.
Yep.
So that it states that the transfer of these, the records, property and equipment. Although that was eliminated, it says whenever the powers and duties are assigned. We said this makes sense. And then you eliminated time of taking effect. This, in essence, was all about the initial charter.
The initial charter, correct. That's how I read it.
So that was 7-5, which had subsections A, B, and you were suggesting that section C be moved to section 3-2. And 3-2,
Did I get the number wrong?
no, I could be right. 3-2 is select board.
Yeah, oh, yeah, right. So,
So it would be forthwith following the election at which this charter is adopted, and incumbent members of the select board shall be invited to attend a drawing to be conducted by the town clerk at which.
right, I mean, it's
number-
not gonna, that happen, I assume, Steve, did that happen back then?
That
I
did
don't-
happen, but that's in the past. We're not gonna be
Right,
doing
you don't
that.
even need that technically. I mean, that, I say you move it there because when you're looking at the charter, that's where it belonged.
But we could probably cut that in half.
We may be able to eliminate that because in the select board, we have already changed the composition of the board.
And does it say in the select board section that they run for a specific seat?
Let
If
me,
not, we can cut this portion, that portion of it and move it to that. Again, I don't have the whole charter.
I'm pulling it up. So 3-2.
I don't know that you need that note in there either at the end, to be honest with you.
I'm reading it very quickly. I'm not seeing it to be that specific.
So I think that should, because it was changed to have a specific seat. At one
Yeah.
point, it was the top vote getters. So we can just move that portion of that section into section 3.2.
We have composition, term of office. There shall be a select board consisting of 5 members that are elected in terms of 3 years each. The terms of office shall be so arranged that as nearly an equal number of the same as is possible shall expire in each year. But it doesn't say that you will run for a specific seat.
Yeah, so we can move that language to that section and eliminate
So
the
that
first
looks like it's right in
sentence.
3-2A. Would make sense.
Okay.
And then the last one, until such time as a different form of government is provided and in accordance with the provisions of section 4.1, which section 4.1 is administrative organization. Section 4.1 is organization of town agencies. Of this charter, the administrative structure of the town as it is presently constituted shall continue to be operative.
Okay.
So do we need that in section
I mean, again, it goes without
7?
saying. I don't know.
I
that
think section
it
7,
goes
which
without
was about
saying.
transitional provisions, really
Right.
had to do with the first go-round.
Right. I was trying not to totally change it, but I don't even think it's necessary. It's self-evident.
Hmm.
It's up to you guys. It's form over substance at this point.
Well, it
Almost
seems
a-
like the only thing we were keeping was continuation of government,
And transfer of records, but
transfer of records, yeah.
Where's that? Which section is that?
In section 7, we
Oh.
thought 7-2 we would keep, which is the continuation of government.
Right.
And then 7 dash, initially it was 7-4, transfer of records and property, we would keep.
We could research to see if the issue of when departments are combined, what happens to the records, maybe that's elsewhere in the charter. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we could find out, and if it is, then we wouldn't need that either.
I don't know where else it would be, but I don't remember seeing it. But
Hmm.
it's been-
Should it go under Article 6 and general provisions? Financial and fiscal.
I mean, so you're just trying to get rid of a section? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, the
Well,
section
either that
doesn't.
or just have section 7 with one statement in it, which doesn't make.
Yeah.
sense, I think.
Article, general.
Looks like
provision.
section 7 is getting rid of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might make sense to put some of these things, that 7-4 into Article 6.
Anthony, I'm trying to think of an example of transfer of records and property that would happen where there would be resistance from one department or another.
The only thing I could think of is the cemetery commission.
Ah.
When we got rid of them,
yeah,
records were kept at somebody's house, so that was a big to do.
would there
Yeah,
be,
I can't think of any other examples when there's been a change in. I mean, Steve, you've been around longer than I have. Maybe you know.
no, I brought up the example of the shellfish and harbor master, and that was just a smooth, logical movement of paperwork, but
Right.
I mean, the only, and I'm thinking too deeply here, but if we were to combine a department that had some privilege, let's say it was a health department or it was personnel, and it was going to be combined with any other department, are we opening a can of worms by moving records where they may no longer be classified, or I don't know, I can't see it, I guess, any other way.
Well, they're all town departments at this point. So,
Right.
and I don't know how the cemetery commission was set up, but any town department is overseen by the select board, so they would or an elected board, and you'd be required to, share the records between departments. It's not.
Right.
That's why I'm just trying to think of what an example would be where, I don't know.
And
Maybe if,
Privilege and confidentiality would follow.
Well, the only reason I brought that one up, because that one was a big one, because somebody had the records at their house and they wouldn't bring them in and the check.
yeah, I mean, maybe if one day the fire districts became part of the town, which I don't see happening, but that would be the only time where maybe that would be that this would apply.
So we actually, I think if we kept Article 7, transitional provisions, and had 7-2, which is continuation of government, we can put that last paragraph, until such time as a different form of organization is provided, and in accordance with the provisions of section 4-1 of this charter, the administrative structure of the town as it is presently constituted shall continue to be operative. That is in section, that would be section 7.2. It would become 7.1, and then transfer of records stays, and that's all we have.
That becomes 7.2.
7,
That would be all you need for.
because that
7.
does talk, it is a transition. And then this last thing, this note, a listing of all appointments, terms of office, we've already dealt with that in section 6, I feel, Article 6.
You're right. It's repetitive.
So I don't think we need it.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. Delete the note.
Anyone else see that as being any problem or issue?
I think the less words, the better. I mean, probably not. We don't, if we just carry extra articles for the sake of having them, it just dilutes the effectiveness.
Mhm. But I think reducing it to those two, which do deal with transitional provisions,
Right.
one saying there isn't one in our government, and the other one saying, should there be, all records everything goes.
Yep. Short and sweet.
All right, then Anthony, we're gonna, can someone send Anthony 6, Article
I have
6?
Sean sent it to me.
Oh, he did, great. So let's go back to Article 6.
Uh-oh.
No,
You
no,
did
no,
most-
it wasn't
Can
a
we-
problem. You're the, you have some background knowledge that we
Okay,
could not.
we did a lot of 6 last time, right? At
We
our
did,
last
so
meeting?
we're looking at 6-9.
Oh, okay.
we're trying to remove one another.
I know this one very well.
Okay,
This one was terrible. This section was terrible. This caused us problems in the past.
okay. Because we were trying to figure out what we thought in 6-9.
Mhm.
At the start, we thought we should make 3 sentences. So one would be, regardless of the length of appointment, any appointed town officer.
I
Member of a-
apologize. I just got my battery's low. I just gotta go grab the plug to take
Okay.
these.
Hold that
30
thought. Melanie, while Anthony's doing that, have you been able to insert all the cleaning up of the language that we've done in Articles 1 through 5 at this point?
I've been taking notes for him, but
Okay. Because our next step, we'll talk about that at the end of tonight, because after tonight, we've actually gone through everything and we had some holes, but we probably need to look at a clean copy of what we've kind of suggested to date.
Yeah, we can put that together.
Okay.
At one point, we talked about bringing the town clerk in to answer some questions. Is that something that we should follow up on?
Probably is. I do think that if we could get as a group, what we've talked about so far and be able to, in our leisure, read through it. I will tonight update our holes that we had, that we were curious as to what was happening with different things that we can look at as well. So Anthony, let us know when he's gone.
He'll probably be back.
Probably
Yeah.
just powering back on.
Yeah.
But we probably need to look at something clean to read through it, I mean, we looked at Article 1 a year ago, over a year ago.
Wow.
We probably need to go back to that and read through it. Welcome back, Anthony.
Yeah, my computer, we have a car and it tells you you have 30 miles till the gas is empty.
Yeah,
This
your computer
you
says
literally
5.
30 seconds and it shuts down. So,
So we're looking, I'm laughing, but my battery's low as well now that I look. Removals and suspensions, we thought section 6.9 could be, it's a rather long run-on sentence. So regardless of the length of appointment, any appointed town officer, member of a multiple member body. And then we would stop there and say, may for good cause be suspended or removed from office. And because I guess we were talking, going back and forth without compensation by the relevant appointing authority, because every now and then there is talk about granting compensation to some of these appointments. Then we thought a separate sentence would be regardless of the length of the appointment.
so you're taking employee out of this?
No,
'Cause I've never-
we're making it a separate sentence. So the employee of the town, that is, then it would read, is not subject to the provisions of the Commonwealth Civil Service Law or covered by terms of a collective bargaining agreement that provides a different method, may be removed for good cause, be suspended or removed from office without compensation by the relevant appointing authority. Then the third sentence would be the term good cause shall include. We just thought that the employee piece should be a separate sentence.
Okay.
And then we weren't sure if it was needed, if there were people that were not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And in discussion, we found out, yes, there are.
There used to be a lot more before it used to be all the department heads before that new union was formed. But there are, yeah, building
so-
commission, I believe, right?
No.
There's some others.
He's in a union.
Oh, he is now too?
Yeah, we probably have non-union employees that aren't covered under a personal contract, maybe 3.
And then when we got really,
But we also use this term, Sean, in the employment contracts. So,
Yes, yeah, I said that, yeah.
so we copy pretty much.
so we thought it needed to stay in since there are people. We don't want to create a loophole. But then as we moved on, we wanted to just make sure that good cause was spelled out the same in contracts, which he told us that Sean said that it was. Under 6-9A, the written notice piece, we didn't know whether or not we needed to add that some people may be served by a constable, or were we covered with what it said?
Delivered in hand covers that.
Yeah, you can have you don't need to be a constable. Why do you want to pay a constable? We usually have, we used to have police officers at the.
I just meant sometimes we serve them papers where here it just says mail, certified mail, or delivered in hand.
In hand services,
Yeah,
It's
and
served.
a constable could be in hand.
a police officer could be in hand, the department head could be in hand.
So it's covered, okay.
So we're covered.
Yeah,
And then
I
in
mean,
6
constables can do less than usual on a civil lawsuit if they don't get it in hand, but we require it here in hand. Last than usual means that there's last known address.
Okay. The thing that we were sort of most confused about was the remainder of this section, which talks about the 15 days. However,
it's a
no
good-
suspension shall be for more than 15 days. Then when we read written notice, it happens, and then B was such removal shall be final unless within 5 days following the delivery of such notice, that the town officer member, blah, 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 blah. It sounds like the hearing has to happen within 5 days. And then within 10 days after
No, the
that,
employee may request a public hearing. You know, because what would happen is before, you would have to give them notice you intend to fire them, and if they didn't request a hearing, you'd have to give them notice again that they were fired. And
Oh,
that was,
okay.
it was ridiculous. We went through this with the building commissioner. We had to give them notice twice. It didn't make sense. So that's why it says such removal shall be final unless
so the employee makes a
the employee
request for a
can
public
request a
hearing.
public hearing.
And
Yeah.
then what we have talked about is the public hearing could take several months to schedule.
Oh, my God, yes. I had one in another town that took
And then,
months.
then
And,
it
yeah.
says within 10 days after the public hearing is adjourned, then they make their decision. So what if I'm still suspended during all that time? How can we say, however, no suspension shall be more than 15 days?
I'm just reading it. Give me a
Okay.
minute. I mean, the idea was, I mean, and this happened in another town prior council, and then I took over. It took them months to do an investigation and a report. And that's unfair to the employee. So the idea is you gotta keep the town's feet to the fire to some extent.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying. Within 10 days after the public hearing is adjourned.
Because we also talked about the
Yeah, these are,
suspension
these are
being
tough
with pay
timelines.
or without pay for those things. And then we said, well, if it's no suspension shall be for more than 15 days, if the suspension goes on further, then they get compensated? We don't want to paint ourselves.
No, I agree with you. And this section has been a problem. I didn't want to change the substance of it without having this discussion, because it's not up to me just to change it. So I hate this section. It's been a problem in the past. I hear what you're saying.
Would imagine it doesn't really coincide with a lot of contract language either, right?
Well, the contracts reference is section 6.9. We just refer to the determination, the section in the contracts. Yeah, so we could, I hear what you're saying. So you could say it can't be longer than a period of time without pay. Here's the other problem is you hire a hearing. Now the town's been doing this. I've been trying to get them to do this for 15 years, but Sean prevailed on them to do this. They do hire a hearing officer. The hearing officer oftentimes an attorney. I had a hearing officer in Swansea. It took him 2 months to give us the decision.
Oh, so even though it's saying in C, within 10 days after the
Yeah.
public hearing is
Yeah,
adjourned, that may
you
not
don't
be.
know because the appointing authority can't confirm the removal if the hearing officer, usually you have a hearing officer who makes proposed findings, and they make findings and they make a proposed recommendation. So they may find that, a particular employee did A, B, and C wrong, and we propose that you terminate him, or we propose that you suspend her without pay for X number of days. They're bound by the findings, but they're not bound by the recommendation on the action. So it almost never within 10 days you get Sean, have you ever gotten anything from a hearing officer that quickly? I
No.
can't imagine.
We're actually waiting on one now. That's been a while.
Yeah. So I
So
hear what you're saying.
what-
So we should revisit this section. I'm not sure we can answer it tonight. Maybe
Okay.
let me play with the language a little bit and
Right.
Yeah, I think.
get some other options, what some other towns have done. That might be helpful, and then I can make some recommendations.
And so
Yeah.
is it just if they're referring back into their current contracts, is there anything that binds us to the 15 days because the contracts that are now in active are referencing this section and these timeframes, or are we able to move beyond it with a retroact? Again, I'm just curious about if current contracts are referencing back to this article, are we then bound by the same timeframes that are here, or can we adjust them? But how does that then affect current contracts? Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to understand.
Good question.
Mary.
Okay.
So
All right.
don't overthink it.
Okay,
No,
I'm fine with
she,
that.
I don't want to making arguments for somebody that we try to terminate.
No, I'm with you. I'm just trying to like cover us.
No, it's a very good question. I'm just kidding. It's a very good question. I don't think anybody ever liked the language of this section.
Right, it's confusing.
And the double notice thing was just ridiculous.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think anybody intended it to be that.
Mm.
So I don't know. Do you want to say they can be suspended without? I mean, we pay everybody anyway, don't we, Sean, while they're suspended?
Yeah, unless they've been indicted, sometimes we have not. Depends on the severity of, if it's criminal, then no, but
And then if it's criminal, we usually suspend them without pay and we wait until the conviction to fire them. So we don't want to be bound by a short period of time.
so if they're, say, arrested but not indicted, they're suspended with pay. If they're indicted, they're suspended without pay. That's generally been the practice.
Is there a reason that we have to put a time frame, like 15 days? Can we just say like with all due speed, and be very broad, or is that problematic?
Well, then, then a court, if they ever file a lawsuit, the court would impose its own interpretation of what reasonable is. If you use the term reasonable, there's no requirement.
No, I understand that.
There is no requirement. No, there's no requirement that you put a time frame.
Right. I think I'm just worried. 15
The
days
other
is
town that I
binding.
had that issue with, it took the attorney assigned like months to do the investigation. Because the town administrator was charged with investigation under their contract, but the town administrator was ill, so they had an attorney do it. It took them months just to do the investigation. So by the time it got to me, we moved it quickly within a month to a hearing. But it took a long time to get the investigative report. And then after the hearing, it took 2 months to get a recommendation from the hearing officer. So
Right.
these things never move that quickly.
Right.
10 days is ridiculous, yes.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Anthony, why does it say there's no appeal may be, no appeal may be made from the suspension? Because sometimes you can get suspended without having to go through all the other steps. You didn't lock the door before you left the house or something.
We're trying to limit lawsuits against the town. We're saying if you fire, you can sue us, but or you can challenge it. But if it's something less than a termination, I've done that with the fire districts as well. I've written that into the fire chief's statutes, special acts that we drafted. You're trying to draw a line where we're not in court for every little stupid thing, I guess.
So now, do we need to say that, is that where it should go? No appeal?
Where do you see that? Where is that?
That was added to the main
In the main-
paragraph of
Yeah.
6-9. It's on the same page. No appeal may be made from any suspension that is made pursuant to this section. Or
Oh,
should
okay.
that go at the very end? Because
But then it says,
in order to
however, no
appeal-
suspension shall be more than 15 days.
Right,
So, yeah, so if you don't want to end up in court over a 15-day suspension. You can change the suspensions too. You could have a suspension be longer and say you can't appeal it if it's a suspension less than, I think, so for instance, with the police, they have limited appeal rights of the to the select board of the chief can make certain determinations. I think if it's less than, I haven't done this in a while, less than 5 days, then they can't even appeal it to the select board. So you're giving the chief some authority to impose discipline without having a further appeal. If it's more than a certain amount, then they get to appeal it to the select board. You're trying to give your town officials some power to discipline and not have everything end up in a lawsuit or in a hearing.
So I guess because I'm not a legal person, my thing was, is the no appeal, in essence, when I received my written notice, and now I have 5 days to tell them that I want to request a public hearing. In fact, that's me appealing this suspension.
Yes.
So should the no appeal go after the whole thing? So after the hearing, after it's been said that I'm going to lose my job, at that point, I cannot appeal. It's done.
Where are you trying to say?
Well, I'm just wondering, I just think that if I.
No,
such a
because the
relief-
rest of what follows after that sentence is all about removal.
Right,
So it's put there as saying, okay, if there's a suspension, you can't appeal it. And then you talk about, after that, all the procedures are about a removal.
But isn't the hearing kind of an appeal of the suspension? If you act in that time frame and you request the hearing, aren't you in fact?
No, you're only
That's-
getting a hearing if there's a removal. The hearing
Okay,
procedure is for a removal.
okay. Maybe that's right. Okay, so suspension isn't, so I think I was reading this as a suspension predicated until we go through the removal process.
It is two separate
Okay.
things. There's
Okay.
a suspension
that's-
and then there's separately a removal, but then there's that one
Right.
sentence that say they may be coterminous.
Okay,
Um,
that's what I
So
think.
you can suspend them and there's nothing they can do about it, but then if you move through a termination, then they have all these
Oh, yeah,
additional
right, okay, okay.
procedural safeguards in place.
so, all right, and I do see, thank you for pronouncing
thank
that
you.
word that we stumbled over in your
Yes.
absence. Conterminous.
Conterminous, that wasn't a word wealth word.
No, no. So then we're talking two different things. The suspension may be for no more than 15 days. And and so I cannot appeal the suspension. I've been given a suspension for 15 days, done, can't appeal it. But now, if the appointing authority, when removing any such town officer, member of the multiple, maybe
Well,
that.
the reason why you guys mispronounced coterminous is because the N doesn't belong in the word. I just saw that.
Oh, it's
Well, it's-
not
It's
counterminous?
coterminous.
Coterminous.
Oh, that's
So
why,
what-
okay.
It's misspelled. I'm surprised the word didn't pick up on that.
It has different meaning, the way it's written is different meaning from coterminous. Conterminous is almost the opposite. But-
So I'm wondering if that sentence should be a fresh paragraph.
I think so.
So that suspension, it's done, interest of the town, no appeal may be made from any suspension that is pursuant to this section. However, no suspension shall be more than 15 days, done. New paragraph. Suspension may be conterminous with removal and shall not interfere with the rights of the town officer, member of a multiple member body, or town employee under the removal procedure that is provided below. The appointing authority, and so that's totally separate. I'm not
Coterminous, yeah.
I'm not getting written notice about my suspension. I'm not requesting a hearing over my suspension. My suspension is done unless I find out, I gather within those 15 days that I am not being suspended. They have now decided to terminate me. Then I move into the rest of that. Should it be its own paragraph? Or should it be a new section?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You lost me.
You've had
By
a
the
very
way,
long day.
coterminous is the second definition of conterminous according to Merriam-Webster dictionary. So I always use coterminous, so it's not a spelling. I've never seen that word used before, but
No, I think it's, yeah, in 6-9, which is removals and suspensions.
Yeah.
It's actually suspensions and removals.
Can we have a separate section? Because I'm kind of in agreement with you that having one for suspensions and then a separate one that's suspensions and removals. It seems that, when we're talking about timeframes, there's two different. To mix them, I think, is muddying the waters a little bit. Muddying the
well, then
waters.
you're gonna be defining good cause twice, because the good
Yeah.
cause is the same standard. as Suspension or removal.
So this one is
I mean, you could
6-9.
do it,
removals and
you
sus-
could do it and use good cause and define good cause twice, or
Well, I
But
guess
if we have removals and suspensions and we have that first section that we discussed, which was really all about suspensions. So that becomes, yeah, that could be A. Then B goes into removal. And then these A, B, and C become 1, 2, and 3 under B removal.
right.
yeah, you could define good cause at the end. For this section, good cause means you just define good cause once.
Right.
But do you think that if it's under the same thing, A is suspensions, because that's a lesser, B becomes the removals.
You're just gonna be repeating language, like you'd be repeating most of that first sentence, right? Regardless of the length of appointment, any appointed blah, blah, blah. Can be suspended without compensation.
Well,
And
are
then
you
you'd be saying the
always
same
suspended
sentence
before
again.
you're removed?
Not always, but most of
Oh.
the time. Usually, if you're removing somebody, you're taking the time to put together a good case. So you suspend them while you're, I'm trying to think of a case where we had a termination hearing without suspending the person first. I can't think of one. I mean, this doesn't happen a lot, but
Yeah, and like you said, if there's something that's criminal, that supersedes everything.
It seems
Um,
like it was created, so if someone's done something, you suspend them for 15 days. If that 15 days should give you enough time to decide whether, yes, we're gonna terminate this employee, or we're gonna give them we're gonna have them back, but give them some other form of discipline. So it's really just like, I think Anthony said, a cooling off period to kind of get some things straight. So you decide within 15 days whether you're gonna terminate or have a hearing or do whatever, or just bring them back.
So Anthony, if we had that first part as an A, and then when we got to suspension, maybe terminus with removal, could we start right there as a B? Why do you think we need to state all the other stuff again?
you need to state regardless of the length of appointment, any town officer, blah, blah, blah,
Okay,
may be suspended, and then you'd have to say the same thing again, may be removed. Right, and
so maybe we just make it a separate,
I guess I don't see the
Paragraph.
big issue about having removal and suspension in the same. But we can clarify,
I think it confused us and we were reading it all as those 15
I can
days,
play with
and
it.
maybe if we just
Sometimes it's
5
hard,
days.
sometimes it's hard just to co-write something. So I could just try to play with it and come up
But
with.
it could have been us. I think the 15, no more
I
than
mean,
15.
I could
we-
just, I could sit down and sometimes I intend to write. I didn't write this, but if I was gonna write something out of whole cloth, sometimes I intend to write it one way when I start and I end up going, I don't like that and doing it a different way. So if you want, I can sit down and try to rewrite section 6.9 one or two ways and see how it comes out, and then say, what do you think of this as an option?
Can I ask a question, Anthony, as you're looking at that? It says after, however, no suspension shall be for more than 15 days. It almost feels to me like, and again, just as a lay person looking at this, it says if the decision is made to pursue possible removal. It's almost as though, I think there's like, and again, I know suspension may be coterminous with removal, but I think that seems to be like the transition right there, is that if there's a decision, like it ends at the 15 days, if you're, or that would be the max. I think that's what kind of confused.
Yeah, you know, and I actually don't, the 15 days is bothering me now.
Yeah. And that's where we were struggling. I mean, that really kind of hit us, so.
What
Well,
we,
yeah, and I can see the suspension is 15 days. When I've now been told that I'm going to be terminated within those 15 days, where am I in limbo until the end? I'm thinking more about.
we'll
pay.
usually put somebody on, yeah, we'll put somebody on leave with pay, unfortunately, because
Oh, okay.
we can't not pay them for more than 15 days, so we'll put them on leave with pay until we go through the whole hearing process.
And again, Anthony, I think our confusion stemmed because.
I mean, you could do it you can write it a bunch of different, you can write that ultimately there's no pay during any period of suspension. You don't have to limit it to 15 days. If there's a termination process occurring, you can suspend them without pay. However, if they end up winning the hearing, then you have to pay them back pay. I mean,
Yeah.
you
But
can
I
write it
think
that
our
way.
confusion just was, that was 15 days. Paragraph B said 5, paragraph C said 10, and we were thinking that equals 15, and it all had to happen within 15 days. I think for me, you have,
Right.
Yeah, I see. Oh, I can.
Out for
Yes,
me.
I think that's just coincidence. I see
Yeah.
what you're saying.
and you've teased it out that the suspension is 15 days.
The 5
then-
days is just we'll give you notice. If you don't appeal it within 5 days, you're out of luck. So
Done.
that's the 5 days. That's not tied to the 15 any stretch.
But this
And,
10
you
days
know,
sounds problematic in C.
Yeah, that's very
This
problematic.
is not reasonable.
It's not reasonable at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how we hold to that. Yes. I'm glad you guys picked up on all this, because this section has been a major pain whenever we have to use. Fortunately, we don't have to use it very often.
That's good.
Hey, Anthony, I get just 2 other short little tiny things. When you're talking 15 days, 5 days, 10 days, is there any place that it's already covered that states that what a day is? Is a day Monday to Friday, and then we don't count Saturday and Sunday, or is it?
Usually we
15
still, and
calendar
the
days.
computation of time. So again, I don't have the whole chart in front of me, but I would go back to section 1, the definitions.
Section 1, okay.
And look
All
to
right.
see if we talked about it in there. I think
Okay.
usually we'll say if something says more, less than blank days, it's business days. If it says more than blank days, it's calendar days. A lot of times you'll have that in the definition section. I did this definition section so long ago now, I don't recall.
Well, I
So-
just zoomed through it in the original, and it's not there. So I'm making a note for Article 1 that we add
It's that way a lot, like in court rules, as Steve knows as well. If you have to take an action,
Yeah.
short period of time, they say it's business days.
Okay,
Unless something specifies calendar days or business days, the courts will look at, I think 14 is a cutoff. Less than 14, it's just business days, and more than that, it's calendar days. But it can be defined, and sometimes it's better to define it.
Yep.
and the other question I had is right down at the end of this section, the last sentence. For me, I think I'd like to see it as a separate paragraph. So a C, then this would be D. It says nothing in this section shall be construed as granting a right to a hearing when a person who has been appointed for a fixed term is not reappointed when time expires, and any such failure to reappoint shall not be construed as a removal. And I think that needs to be there But I think it needs to
Yeah,
be
you're right. It
separated
really
from
should be.
everything
I think you're right. It would be better in a separate
Yeah.
section.
Yeah,
Because it's not within the 10 days hearing process. It's an
Right.
exception to the whole procedure. Yeah, I like that. Good point.
That really makes sense. Thank you, David.
okay.
Steve, are those really books behind you, or is that a fake background? You're trying to look smart.
There's nothing that could make me look smart, and they're all comic books.
We're all very impressed.
Anything more in tonight's section? This was good work, folks. I am going to ask that at our next meeting, which is January, Melanie, help me.
26,
26.
probably 6 weeks.
Thank you, 26th. I am traveling, and I hope to be traveling and won't be there that night, which is fine. I had said, though, at the meeting that we need to elect a vice chair at the next meeting. So I guess we really do, because the chair won't be there. So I'd also propose that we review the charter document of the proposed changes. Is that reasonable to think that within the next 2 weeks, going all the way back to section Article 1?
Yeah, I don't think we can get that done in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's a lot.
Okay.
For Melody, still catching up from last week being out, so.
Oh, gosh.
Makes sense to continue our next meeting by another week or two, well, another week.
Yeah, then we have, our next one after that would be February 9th.
Yeah, that might be better to have, could probably
I
have.
mean, I'm not saying everything, but we have to clean up some of it and review it to get any final changes. So can we say February 9th and look at as much as possible?
Yeah, I think we can do that. If we'll, Melanie and I will work on it with Anthony, we'll know whether we're close or not within a week or so of the
Yeah.
night. So
I can do a lot of the red line because it's easy for me because I was the author and the Word document to accept or reject changes. The only thing I have not been good at is taking notes during this whole process. So if there's anything that's been discussed that have been issues, I really haven't been jotting those down.
I had sent that hold document that we had. I'll add tonight's, and then that should be everything, but it should be really what when we look at it clean, if what we all thought we were saying, does it sound right?
Yeah, and sometimes when you get rid of the red line changes, you go, "Oh, that doesn't sound so good
That
now."
doesn't sound right.
Mm.
So we all have the red line changes, and we should have downloaded them into a folder so that when we're reading them the next time, we can put maybe side by side. It'll be fairy font, but did we clean it up correctly? We have to be moving towards having this document done.
Right, so I'll talk to Melanie about whatever notes she has on the discussions and I'll try to clean up, get it a clean version, but
And
that's gonna
even
take,
if
that's gonna take some time.
I
That's
know,
a
and
lot.
even if it's articles out of order, because you look at them and you go, well,
Oh, okay, I'll do 7 first then.
right, so Article 7 would be easier to do than Article 6. So even if we have to look at them out of order, I think we need to start looking at them clean.
Okay. You shouldn't have said that because I'm gonna pick the easiest ones first. You know that, right?
No, no, do it. We want to feel success too. You know, as I said, we've been, you know, it's taken us a year to go through 7 articles. I didn't, when we proposed going through the process, I honestly did not, granted, we took the summer off, didn't think it would take us the time that it has, but I think we've had good conversation as we've done it. So, you know, in hindsight, I think we needed this time.
Heidi, is it you or Melody that can get me the prior chapters? Because I came in kind of
Oh,
half through.
okay, Chris, I didn't know who was speaking. I
Yeah.
can send them to you.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, you were talking with your hand over your mouth, so it was hard to tell who was the
I
one
was like,
talking.
who's talking?
That's what you do when you don't want people to know who's saying it.
That's right.
Yeah, it could be a fastball or a softball.
And all polls. So that being said, we're coming to the end of tonight's meeting, the latest meeting we have ever stayed on camera for, by the way, it's 7:46. So I'm proposing that our next meeting is Wednesday, February 9th. And at that time, we will review tonight's meeting minutes, elect a vice chair, and review any of the charter articles with proposed changes that are available to us.
Who wants to be vice chair?
Someone needs to nominate someone else. Hey, first, you need to vote on skipping the next meeting date and then if you want to do a vice chair, someone needs to make a recommendation for a vice
Can we
chair. It
do
needs
it
to be
even though
seconded.
it's not on the agenda for tonight? Can we
Oh, no,
still-
you're right. You can't do that. Sorry.
I didn't think so. So that's why we'll put it on the agenda. So be thinking about who would like to nominate themselves, or contact one of the people on the screen and tell them it's okay to nominate me. That I will accept it. So that being said, now I will just ask if we are ready to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah,
I move we adjourn.
the meeting.
Thank you, David.
second.
David moves to adjourn and Mary seconded that. That's what I
Two-
heard.
Two smart things today, David.
Yeah.
So thank you. I am going
Lucky.
to now go roll call by the faces on my screen. Terry, because they've
Yes.
shifted.
Yes.
Yes. Heidi, yes. David,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Reagan's dad.
Yes.
Thank you. All
right,
right, thank you
everyone.
very much.
Right.
Right.
Thank
Hi,
you.
guys.
Oh, do we have to vote that we're, did I say? We're skipping the next
Yeah,
meeting?
you said that. I think that was all part of the same vote.
Yeah.
I-
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
See you February 9th.